Chapter 1. William Osborn. Ding. Will woke up with that peculiar sound ringing in his ears. Aura farming system. Connected. Opening his eyes, a blurry projection of words came into his view. Immediately, he jerked up, all signs of sleep vanishing. Is it actually here? Tremors of disbelief ran through his body. 19 years. That's how long he had waited for this moment, to have a system. An external aid. He had long given up hope, having tried everything he could but to no avail. Unexpectedly, it arrived so pleasantly one day, like a good morning kiss from a goddess. As for the reason for this desperation, that may have something to do with his current identity, William Osborn, with an emphasis on Osborn. 22 years old, and heir to a billion-dollar fortune. He was 3 years old when he regained the memories and the accompanying mental maturity of his previous life. And then he realized where he was. The Marvel Universe. Will was sure of it. Characters like Tony Stark, Captain America, the mutants, they're actually real. What he wasn't sure of was which version of Marvel he was in. After researching, Will tentatively concluded that this world is like a cocktail of comics and movies, having characteristics of both, but mostly movies, and the timeline is not completely accurate. It's the end of 2007 now, and the main events of Marvel seem to be on the verge of starting. The same for the X-Men. And Will cannot say he is ready. Using Oscorp's resources, Will has tried his best to prepare himself, increasing his personal strength while also expanding his arsenal. But as they say, not just any Norman, Will, or Harry can get superpowers without harmful side effects simply because they want to. You need the protagonist's luck for that. And today, he finally got something that could give him a real chance at survival. A system. Rubbing his eyes, Will quickly check the interface. It was blue. Aura farming system bonded. Farm aura across the multiverse and become the most badass existence in all existence. Do you wish to start? Aura farming. William didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was expecting something more serious. Conventional. Still, as they say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Start. No matter what kind of system it is, Will is willing to make it work. Opening square bracket. Name: William Osborn. Age: 22. Tier: Novice Aura Farmer. Aura: 0. Normal skills: Shooting LV2, Fighting LV2, US Special Forces LV1, Cooking LV1, Computing LV1, Expand. Aura skill tree: Locked. Tasks: None. Tier bonus: None. Closing square bracket. Will clicked on the small I next to Aura, and another screen popped up. Aura: the energy derived from the impression you make on other individuals. It can be used for a variety of purposes. System: how do I get Aura? And how do I get the tasks? Will asked after browsing through the panel. Unfortunately, he was met with no reply from the system. Quote. William realized that his new system might be a bit unreliable. After a few more minutes of exploring the system, he gave up. It seems he will have to find a way to get it working. Checking the time, he decided to get to work first. The system is just an external aid. He still has to continue the plans he has been working on for the last decade. Skipping the jacuzzi due to the system delay, he took a quick shower and stood in front of the full-length mirror naked. Staring back was a young man with a strong, athletic build, broad shoulders, sharply defined muscles carved from years of relentless training. His tousled brown hair framed a face marked by dark, thoughtful eyes and a sculpted jawline that hinted at quiet confidence. A pair of dimples appeared when he smiled, softening the otherwise chiseled intensity of his features. Useless. Will clicked his tongue. He knew that all these muscles and all the training could be completely useless in front of the actual threats that exist in this world. And Will is not willing to accept that. Iris, suit me up. As you wish, Master Osborn. The walk-in closet behind him opened, and mechanical arms emerged from the floor, selecting his attire, blow-drying his hair, and helping him put on a custom suit, crocodile leather black shoes, and a Patek Philippe watch. Say what you will about Marvel, but the technological progress here is far faster compared to his previous, normal world. Iris is an artificial intelligence program that he has built after investing billions. His watch chimed in quick succession. Will knew who was texting him. Only his younger brother Harry messages like this. Will tapped his watch and the Patek Philippe turned into a digital watch. Yo. Don't forget. I've GT a PTC tomorrow. Be there at 10. Brock, take the team, I'm ready. Brock was the head of his security team, all of whom were retired special forces. They were trained to handle not only normal threats but also the extraordinary. With his bodyguards following behind him, Will drove to his workplace. It was a large technological park situated at the outskirts of New York, with multiple buildings belonging to different subsidiaries. And all this belongs to Will. Not Norman, not Harry, him. Since his mind was already mature at a young age, Will had completed his graduation at the age of 13, which is not too shabby in Marvel. Of course, he wasn't a real genius, but this at least got him permission from Norman to start his own company. Since Oscorp already has a solid foundation in biotech, he borrowed the resources from his cheapskate father and funded the research of regeneration cradle technology by Helen Cho, a Marvel character who appeared in Age of Ultron, who used cradle tech to heal Hawkeye and even make the body for Ultron. Will found her when he was methodically searching for information about all the talents he could recruit. He was 9 at the time, and Helen was doing post-graduation in biotech at MIT. He got her an internship at Oscorp, which quickly converted into a full-time job through her own strength. A few years later, when he saw her application for funding her research in the Oscorp database, he decisively used $50 million of the money that he had accumulated through various means till then and recruited her to his own new startup. After that, he had to borrow several million more, and there was still no result. But Will was not in a hurry, still preparing other startups. 5 years later, when Helen's research was a success, he became a billionaire. He quickly registered patents for the autonomous nanocellular regeneration pod and the genetically adaptive biofabrication chamber. Then, with Oscorp's resources, protecting the tech, promotion, and market occupation was pretty easy. In the first place, a major part of the success was because he had directly taken talents, tech, and equipment from Oscorp, but even then, Norman didn't take advantage of him, letting him borrow everything to play around, without asking for anything in return. This made Will, who didn't fully trust Norman, feel guilty. Say what you will about Norman Osborn, but he truly wants the best for Harry in most stories. He is the same with Will, always encouraging and supporting him to excel. That's why Will decided that he won't let Norman or Harry turn into the Green Goblin and will do his best to protect them from the dangers of this world. Parking right in front of the skyscraper with the words, Osiris Biotech, he got out of his modified Pagani convertible. Instantly, various gazes fell upon him. For the most part, Will has kept a low profile. Since being famous like Tony Stark can get your house bombed, Iron Man 3, the fewer people who know about him being a multibillionaire and the owner of Cradle Tech, the better. Without paying any mind to the inquiring eyes of the employees, he lifted his briefcase and began making his way in. But, aura +1. Aura +1. His aura actually started to increase. What? Will was startled. It finally responded. Recalling the definition, aura seems to be the energy derived from the impression he made on others. It seems that driving a sports car into the company, looking young and handsome, has given him aura. This changes things. Shelving this new discovery for later, he first went to meet with Helen. The Korean beauty was rapidly typing away on the supercomputer, rows of information flashing in front of her eyes. Helen didn't notice his arrival. The lab coat hung open over a fitted burgundy blouse that drew the eye to her waist, paired with a pencil skirt that skimmed just above the knee. Her heels clicked softly against the floor as she shifted, the glow of the screens catching the sleek line of her legs and the quiet confidence in her posture. Will didn't make a sound until he was right behind her, peering over her ear. How is it going? He finally asked, making her jump. Helen glared back at him, rolling her eyes. But her smile could not be hidden. Oh, so you do remember your Nuna. Nuna, what boys call their older sister or older lover in Korean. Will sighed. I've been busy, he muttered, putting down his heavy briefcase. This is not the only company Will has. There are also Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp, started between 2003-2008, riding the newly generated internet wave. Aura +15. Helen sighed at that. I miss the days when you were little and had nothing to do except play in my lab. Anyway, the research on the Osborn serum is going well. We're very close to clearing the mental instability part. Dr. Albert and Louise are trying their best. Dr. Albert and Louise Thompson were the newest additions to Will's company. In the Marvel world, talent is everything. There are some geniuses who are just built differently and can come up with groundbreaking stuff. Unfortunately, almost all of those geniuses are Marvel characters like Helen, and it's difficult to recruit them. Albert and Louise, while not on that level, are at least much better than ordinary geniuses, experts in neurobiology and genetics respectively, and thus a good pair for developing the enhancement serum. Also, Will has not seen them in any Marvel comics or movies, so that's good too. Alright. How are those two doing, by the way? Have they found their son yet? It seemed that the couple's son had run away a while back, and they'd been searching for him while also doing side research to cure his terminal illness. Geniuses cannot be constrained, so we'll let them borrow the facilities for their side research as long as they met their deadlines. As for their son, Will also offered to find him, but they refused, saying he would be found when he wanted to be. Actually, they did find their son. And they also found out his illness can be cured using our new reconstruction cradle tech, so they're doubly proactive with the research. Will grinned. Now that's some good news. Will and Helen were good friends, having shared failures and successes together, so he talked with her a while longer. Helen had the highest authority here after him, managing all kinds of quirky geniuses. After having lunch with her and processing a few documents, he got up. "Get me into the pod," he said, taking off his coat. This was the main reason he had come here. The companies didn't really need him to do anything, having capable personnel in charge. He was mostly responsible for knowing the overall situation, signing off on funding, and giving ideas and direction with his otherworldly knowledge. The joyful smile on Helen's face started to fade. "You don't need to do this." Will sighed. "You won't understand. But believe me, I really do. But the reconstruction pod is not fully optimized yet. It will still cause a lot of pain," she said, unable to hide the concern in her tone. Cradle reconstruction pod. It's the next version of the cradle regeneration technology. Basically, it can slowly reconstruct the body on a cellular level, optimizing all physical and even mental attributes. It also makes the cells more adaptable, making the body more compatible with enhancement serums like the Super Soldier Serum and the Goblin Serum, increasing the chance of success and further boosting the enhancement effects of the serum. Meaning if Will took the same serum as Captain America after this, his chances of success would increase, and his physical stats would also be much higher. With such benefits, how could Will pass on it just because of a minor issue like pain? You know, it's already 2008. It won't be long before this place is crawling with dangerous entities. Will really has no choice but to accelerate the progress. The good thing is that the process has no side effects. Well, except the pain. Anesthetics can make the process unstable, so you have to just raw dog it. For now. The process is gradual, taking several sessions with adequate intervals for adaptation and healing. Will has only gone through one session before this, and it was hell. Will took off his shirt, revealing his muscular torso. Aura +15. Aura +15. Will looked at Helen curiously. Why was it that he got only A+1 aura from the several onlookers outside, but A+15 from Helen? Is it because she has more aura? Or is it because she is a named character? Putting this behind him, he walked toward the pod while taking off his shoes. Still looking? He asked after losing his pants. He didn't really mind, but he needed her to make the preparations right now. Aura +15. Aura +15. Aura +15. Helen snapped out of it and quickly typed on the keyboard, getting the pod ready while feeling her face heat. The pod slowly opened, and a special liquid filled it. Taking off all of his clothes, Will stepped in and eased himself into the liquid, lying face up. Helen came and fixed his posture, placing the oxygen mask over his face. She looked at Will with a complicated expression. It seemed she was still searching for ways to dissuade him. But in the end, she only sighed. "Signal me whenever you want to stop. I'll be right here. Don't worry. You can look more, you know. Not many have the honor," he said, tossing her a wink. "Bastard. I was serious." Helen's face flushed before she quickly slammed the pod shut, turning away. Will really didn't want her to be so serious and worried. That was the point. The light inside the pod dimmed as the liquid surrounded him. And then, the pain began. Hi, this is my new book with a fresh concept, Aura Farming. If you're bored of the usual system books, then you can try this one. Also, I'm an old author who's been #1 in all-time Power Stones rankings, so you rest assured about the quality. This is my alt account. Edit. Here Helen's image. 15 comments 0 vote. Chapter 2. Aunt May. When Will woke up, it was already the morning of the next day. He slowly climbed out and stretched his body. How to say it? He felt weak and energetic at the same time. Catch. A wireless mouse was thrown at him, which he caught without looking. Helen nodded in appreciation. Your reaction speed is also steadily rising. She had dark circles under her eyes, indicating that she had been up all night, keeping watch. Will shook his head. I already knew you were going to throw it this time. The reaction speed did increase, but it wouldn't be so obvious. Having appreciated the view enough, Helen threw a towel at him. Go take a shower. You're covered in dead cell residue and unneeded secretions. Will shrugged, walking into the bathroom. Helen practically lives most of the time here, so of course this place has a bathroom inside. After he left, Helen fanned her face, which had heated up. Was there also a size increase? She wondered. She was never bold enough to look directly before this, so she couldn't compare. Inside the shower, Will felt inexplicable at the new wave of aura. He just sighed. Will recruited Helen when he was very young, so she has always treated him like a younger brother. But, that is slowly changing now. Will doesn't know if that's good or bad. Helen is really good. It's just that Will has no desire to settle down right now. Just now, his life or death was in Helen's hands. What would have happened if she had just seen news of him with a super hot Marvel girl and gotten jealous? Didn't Tony honestly stop playing after hooking up with Pepper? Because he knew he couldn't afford to mess with that woman. Leaving the company after handling the rest of the procedures, Will checked his phone, only to see a dozen messages from Harry. It was only then that he remembered he was supposed to attend Harry's PT conference today. Fortunately, there was still time. While driving, he was in deep thought. It seems that aura can be obtained through various means. But Will still isn't completely sure exactly how. It seems he can get it through showing off, but this needs confirmation. Checking the time, Will directly drove his Pagani Zonda F Roadster faster, reaching 200 miles per hour. An hour later, he looked at the sign, Midtown High School, in front of him. As the supercar drove in, heads kept turning, both from the pleasant hum of the modified V8 engine and because of the cool look of the convertible. Parking it smoothly, Will stepped out, still carrying his briefcase. Many students and parents could be seen entering and exiting, while some proud, some embarrassed depending on the student's performance. Many curious eyes fell on him, giving him a wave of aura points. Will didn't hold out much expectation. How to say it? Harry was an average teenager through and through. He would sometimes burst out with incredible motivation but would go right back to mediocrity the next day, playing games and browsing Facebook. But still, compared to other rich second generations who are soiled to the last cell, he is literally a sigh of relief. I knew it could only be your car. Talk about the devil. Having recognized the sound of the car from a mile away, Harry quickly found him, punching him in the shoulder. Why didn't you reply to my texts? I thought you wouldn't come. When have I missed your PTCs? The phone was just on silent. Anyways, where's Peter? Oh, he's with Aunt May. They're also waiting for you. Let's hurry now, he said, dragging him along. The corner of Will's mouth raised imperceptibly. Of course that's what he was indirectly asking, where is Aunt May? Maybelle Parker, aka Aunt Hottie, currently in her mid to late 30s, is a perfect MILF, resembling Marissa Tomei, the Aunt May of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Since Harry and Peter are childhood besties, Will also has a good relationship with Peter and of course Aunt May. After Uncle Ben passed away, Will has been the next best thing, helping out both Peter and Aunt May with their troubles. They quickly made their way into the corridor where Peter and Aunt May were waiting for them. Will, you're actually here, said Aunt May, as soon as she saw him, giving him a big hug. Look at you. You've gotten even bigger. Are you still doing that ridiculous training? She exclaimed, patting his arms. The big mouth Harry had told Peter about Will's mad training regime for which he used to directly fly to the Navy SEAL base. He was at Peter's home when they were discussing this, so of course Aunt May had also heard of it. That was a few years ago and May is still trying to convince him to tone it down a bit. Where are you even going to use it? It's not like you're ever going to war. She'd often say. No, this is just a regular gym and a healthy diet, Will lied with a smile, knowing it was no use trying to explain. Some things, people only understand after experiencing them. Sup, Pete? How's the Oscorp internship going? He asked, bumping fists with Peter. It's good. I read about the new strengthening cradle tech of your company. Is it really possible to replace existing tissues with optimized simulacrum? How did Dr. Cho manage to stabilize the fusion of the optimized simulacrum with the body? Actually, it's not completely stable yet, Will shrugged. But we managed to do it by adding the regeneration compounds of the serum Dr. Connors has been working on. Peter suddenly had a lot of realization on his face. Yes, of course. The serum might be unstable and useless as a whole, but a few compounds of its formula can indeed be used as a stabilizing agent in the simulacrum. Will nodded. And I think we should stop here, otherwise Harry and May fall asleep, he said, noticing the blank and confused looks of the two. I'll take you to the lab someday. You can talk directly with Dr. Helen then, he offered, causing the guy to jump in joy. Harry and Peter walked ahead, chatting animatedly while Will and May followed behind a leisurely pace. You didn't have to do this. Those things must be core secrets, right? Said May, looking at Peter's happy smile. Will shook his head. It's not that important. Besides, Peter is not an outsider, he said, looking into her eyes. May looked into his eyes for a moment then smiled, bumping his shoulder. You are getting more and more handsome. Will had to sigh inwardly. Aunt May is really unique. After so many veiled flirting attempts and with such a handsome face, she still treats him like a child just because of the age difference. Any other woman would have eaten him alive by now. So, is there anything Harry did this time that I need to worry about? He asked as they walked along. May looked at Harry and sighed. He seems to be slipping, she said in a low voice, making sure the boys didn't hear it. Will became serious. Tell me about it, he said, further slowly down his steps. May hesitated. Well, you know Harry's situation. He is alone at home most of the time. He also only has Peter as a real friend. I think this is causing him to seek others to relieve his loneliness. What did he do? Don't worry, tell me everything. Well, I've heard from Peter that he has been hanging out with the bully group. Flash Thompson, Liz Morgan, Kenny McFarlane, you know, the so-called jocks and hot girls. That's not bad, but the problem is they seem to treat him as their cash cow. Peter told me that Harry has been buying their meals, casually lending money and even taking them to expensive clubs and the like. I know that this little money is nothing for your family, but this is causing him to learn the wrong values, that friendship can be bought with money, and that he needs to give money to qualify as a member of their group, you know, as if he is inferior to them. This idiot brother. Will clenched his fists. Will and Harry have grown up together. It would be a lie to say that Will doesn't care about him. So of course Will was angry at those low lives for treating his brother like this. But, he was more angry at Harry and himself. It seems all the things I tried teaching him while growing up were useless, he thought, shaking his head. Harry is emotionally very sensitive. The most influential person in his life is Norman Osborn. But Norman is your typical strict dad who doesn't give a damn about the feelings of his sons. He is mostly busy with company, and believes that his sons should endure some hardships and grow up not spoiled. This kind of dad is present in many families. But the problem is that, they don't have a mother either. This has caused Harry to grow up starved for love and attention, but Norman has always mostly criticized him, lowering his self-esteem. It doesn't help that his brother is a genius who gets more of his dad's attention than himself, further lowering his self-confidence. Seeing his problems, Will has tried to influence him to a certain extent and he even felt that he had succeeded, since Harry is always cheerful and strong in front of him. But, it seems that the guy is just acting in order to fool Will, or maybe he just doesn't want his brother to think less of him. Will stomped his foot, now mostly angry with himself. Thanks, May. It's all my fault. I should have spent more time with Harry. It's really good that you told me before the situation gets worse. Will calmed himself down first. Nothing bad has happened yet. The situation is still completely salvageable. So, right now, the important thing is to thank Aunt May. But May instead got angry at this. Your fault. How is this your fault? You have been attending all of his PTC since you were 15. You took him and Peter out to play whenever you have time. You also taught them how to defend themselves, taught them a clear distinction between right and wrong. What have you not done? Will shrugged. Clearly, it wasn't enough. Otherwise Harry wouldn't be like this. May looked at Will's mature demeanor and sighed. And what about you? No one attended your parent-teacher conference, no taught you the ways of the world, no one was there for you. How did you manage to grow up? Will looked back at May in surprise. Right there. For the first time, he felt that May wasn't looking at him as a kid, but as an equal. As a man. Well, there was indeed no one to look after him, but even if there was, Will would have said, no thanks. He was already a grown man who had already received all of his parents' teachings and beatings in his previous. Why would he need someone to look after him? In fact, it was rather convenient, allowing him to peacefully pursue his goals without all the parent-child drama. But it is true that in the eyes of others, his story is indeed a bit pitiful and inspiring. Me. He just smiled at Aunt May before looking forward again. I had already grown up the day my mother died. He wasn't lying. It was due to the grief that he awakened his memories. Aura +5. Aunt May stopped walking for a moment, causing Will to stop as well. What's wrong? May didn't answer, she just threw her arms around Will, hugging him tightly. Enveloped in a wonderful softness, Will was caught off guard. You don't always have to be so strong. I'm here for you, May whispered. Well, being a bit weak, actually isn't bad either. Will also slowly buried his head, May's neck, embracing her into her arms. No matter if May's intentions were to give him maternal love, this hug was now clearly the hug between a man and woman. May also seemed to realize this, as she separated not long after. Looking at the gazes of people around them, she lowered her head in embarrassment. Sorry, I was too emotional, she said to Will as she pulled him forward, away from the prying eyes. Just now, she was just too heartbroken when she Will and couldn't help wanting to comfort him. Will was still in a state of enlightenment as they hurried to catch up with Peter and Harry. It turns out that Aunt May is an, I can fix him, type of girl. If Will is too perfect, she wouldn't take much interest in him. Just now, she mistakenly got the impression that he might be broken, and their relationship suddenly progressed by several small levels. Looking at the flustered May, Will shook his head. No, please don't apologize. Just now, I felt really relaxed in that hug. No one has hugged me like that in a long time. Will was still telling the truth. Maybe didn't realize it due to the urgent need for power, but it seems that he really didn't let any more care for him in that way. May gasped, realizing this was indeed true. Will has never had parental love. Oh Will, I promise you'll have plenty of those hugs from now on, she promised. Will looked at May, his eyes trying to hide emotions. Thanks May, he said, holding her hand and squeezing it. But then he shook his head, schooling his expression. But I'm fine on my own. I should be. After all, I'm going to have to handle the whole Oscorp group and Harry. How can I be so weak that I'd need hugs? Will still pushed her away. Having a physical relation is fine. But he can't really be emotionally involved like this. Not without power. But only made May more determined to help Will. There was also the factor of compassion. Why is May, who has a dozen men pursuing her, still single? Because she has to raise Peter and also earn enough money to support the two of them at the same time. So, she can perfectly relate to Will as her equal, who is also ignoring his own problems and being strong for his family. Now walking like a couple, they finally reached the classroom. Harry and Peter were chatting with Gwen Stacy and her mother. Edit. Here is Aunt May image. If you missed it, Helen's is in previous chapter. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 3. First mission. Gwen Stacy is also a character from Marvel that Will has been paying attention to. First is because Gwen has a high chance of becoming Spider-Gwen, and the second, slender athletic body, porcelain smooth skin, and short platinum blonde hair arranged in a bob cut and topped with the iconic black hairband, she is like the comic Gwen he used to fantasize about. Gwen has been a classmate of Harry and Peter for years, so obviously, there is some friendship. That's why after Peter got the internship at Oscorp, Harry asked for one for Gwen too. So the next time they met, Will personally interviewed Gwen and got her the internship on the spot with a phone. Harry waved them. What took you so long? Gwen turned around and her eyes lit up when she saw Will. Hi, Will. Thank you so much for the internship. I'm so honored to get the chance to work under some of the best scientists in the world. She exclaimed, giving him a hug. Gwen's mother also stepped forward gracefully. Mr. Osborn. Sorry for the trouble my daughter has caused. She should learn to achieve her goals through own strength rather than using shortcuts, she said, glancing sideways at Gwen. Mom. You may have misunderstood, Mrs. Stacy. Oscorp only hires the best of the best. Even I cannot change that. The reason Gwen got her internship is because she is smarter and more hardworking even compared to most of the full-time researchers we have. The same goes for Peter. In fact, I'm planning to poach them both to my Osiris Biotech as a researcher. Oh my god, really? Gwen practically squealed with joy. It's my dream to work with Dr. Cho. She's the idol whose invention saved my mother's life. Helen Stacy in this world had the same fate as in more Marvel stories, i.e., death due to late-stage pancreatic cancer. Fortunately, this time, her pancreas was successfully replaced using Dr. Helen's regeneration cradle, the reason why she's Gwen's idol. Of course, the bill was hefty, even when most of it was covered through insurance. And since the relation wasn't close enough at the time and Captain Stacy would not accept, Charity, the family had to take a huge loan. Of course, it was well worth it, as now Helen Stacy looks like a healthy and beautiful woman in her 30s. Together, they all walked into the classroom. The structure of the class had been changed. The desks had been removed and chairs had been added, making room for the parents. After that, they can go to other classrooms to meet other teachers and get the results of the respective subjects while also consulting their kids' performance. Their group was the last among the parents to arrive. Under the disapproving gaze of the teacher, a balding middle-aged man named Mr. Johnson, they quickly made their way to the back where there were still empty seats left. Will was going to take a random seat but Harry pulled him to sit next to a pair of beautiful girls, causing Peter and Ant to follow. "Hi Patricia. How is it going?" asked Harry as soon as they sat down, trying to look charming. "Just fine." Patricia, the petite one of the two girls, answered succinctly. She had shoulder-length wavy blonde hair and blue eyes. "Why are you not with Flash Thompson and the others?" she asked indifferently, a hint of disgust in her tone. Harry's smile dropped before he quickly glanced back at Will, who was pretending to listen to Mr. Johnson's nonsense. "Forget about them. Who did you bring with you? Is that your sister?" "Yeah, her name's Jessica," Patricia answered, while her sister ignored talk between the two. Patricia's sister Jessica was wearing a short tube top, open leather jacket, jeans and combat boots, giving the impression of a tomboy beauty. She had long dark brown hair and hazel eyes. Skin was pale white and she had dark circles under eyes, but she was still very beautiful. Moreover, she was taller than Patricia, more curvy, and even abs were visible under the short tube top. "You guys don't seem to have much resemblance except the beauty part," Harry commented after seeing Jessica, but the girl still ignored Harry. "By the way, I also came with my brother." Patricia turned to look at Will, only noticing him now. Her eyes widened a little before she quickly turned to whisper in her sister's ear. Since his hearing was also enhanced, Will could still hear it. "Jessica. His brother is so hot. Aura +10. Jessica turned her head to glance at Will before shrugging. "So what?" she asked, looking uninterested. "That's the most popular girl in our school." Unaware of the conversation, Harry also excitedly turned to whisper to Will. "She's actually a child star." "Okay." Will could only nod at the unnecessary information. After all, he has already been in contact with actual Hollywood actresses. It has to be said that Harry really has no idea how rich he is. At this time, the bell rang, signaling the start of the PTC. "Dear parents and students," Mr. Johnson stood up, addressing everyone. "As the head teacher of this class, my role is not only to teach math, but also observe all students and guide them towards the right path. I will now be announcing your math scores of each student while also addressing the problems I have observed." Mr. Johnson then started to call out the names of the students one by one alphabetically while also announcing their results and giving out remarks. From time to time, he would talk more for the student who needs it and also answer the parents' questions. But will rather observe the good-looking woman sitting in the front corner seat who was using sign language from time to time. It seems that her husband is deaf. Another I can fix him type of woman. There was also another interesting nerd who had set up his camera and was secretly recording the session for some reason. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, your son has scored only 50 marks, but I'm sure most of it is through cheating. I will be taking this matter to the principal." "Well, I think there is no need for that." Harrison Thompson, Flash's father, seemed to be slightly sleepy and hungover. "I'll deal with him," he said, standing up. In doing so, he also exposed his NYPD and gun holster. "I'm rarely at home, so it seems that he has slipped off." Mr. Johnson opened his mouth to speak, but then seemed to decide against it as he just called the name of the next student. Names with the F alphabet were already almost done. Soon it would be Harry's turn. And after learning about Harry's recent collaboration with Flash Thompson's group, Will was not looking forward to it. After a perfect review for Gwen, it was finally Harry's turn. "Harry Osborn. Yes. Where are your parents?" "Excuse me, Mr. Johnson, our parents are unavailable. I am his older brother and I can represent our father. I'm afraid that won't be possible. I will be needing either his parents or an actual adult to receive his results," he said, adjusting his glasses. Hearing this, Patricia and her sister Jessica exchanged glances, realizing they also had the same problem. Mr. Johnson continued. "Meanwhile, you can inform your father that Harry's results have been getting progressively worse and he has even started flunking classes and hanging out with the wrong company." Next, Will didn't bother to speak a word throughout the conversation. He is not going to waste his breath trying to prove to this man that he can actually represent Harry, nor is he going to show his power like a clown to threaten him. So, is he going to be sacked soon? Or will he get beaten up? Harry asked in a whisper. After growing up with Will, he has also learnt of some of his brother's traits. Will fixed him with a cold gaze. That's none of your business. First tell me, why have you been hanging out with Flash Thompson's group? And why are you spending your money on those wastes? They're not wastes. They are actually pretty cool. If they were not in a classroom, Will would have given this guy a good beating. They're using you as a cash cow. They'll turn on you the moment you stop giving them money. Don't you see that? Don't you see how immature, insecure, and stupid those kids are? They have no future and they'll only pull you down with them. They're my friends and I like hanging out with them. And you don't get to tell me what to do after barely calling me in weeks or even months. You two gentlemen, please leave the class if you want to talk, said Mr. Johnson in annoyance, having been alerted due to Harry's raised voice. Ding. Task received. Just then, something inexplicable happened. The task bar, which had been empty till now, suddenly had Will's very first mission. Surprised, Will quickly read it. Kilgrave is coming to Midtown High in order to take you under his control and destroy many lives in the process. Stop him from succeeding while also aura farming as much as possible. Reward. Multiverse travel feature unlocked, missions to other popular worlds. An aura-powered skill. Bonus depending on the amount of aura you farm while doing the task. What in the mind-fucking hell? Rest assured, for now, I only plan to add Harry Potter world. The main focus is always Marvel. I will also write in a way that everyone can read, even if haven't seen or don't remember the original material. Gwen image. 4 comments 0 vote. Chapter 4. Kilgrave. Getting a task from the system was supposed to be a good thing. Under normal circumstances, Will would have been overjoyed and would have tried his best to complete the task to the best of his ability. There was no way. The multiverse travel feature of the system and the aura-powered skill sounded really good to him, who was hungry for power. Too bad, he couldn't give a single fuck to the mission right now. All he could focus on was the fact that Kilgrave, the sinister fucker who controlled the minds of multiple people at once, was coming. And he was coming specifically for him. For the love gods, he had no idea how he had provoked this fucker. Will had been making countermeasures against all kinds of super threats. But he didn't expect to be attacked by this guy, who can control his mind. Not only that, he also attacked him right when he had the lowest security around him. Will was in a state of panic. Kilgrave has no bottom line. He would destroy people's lives, torture them, make them do the most unspeakable taboo things just for enjoyment. It can be imagined what Will's fate will be once Kilgrave takes over. Not only that, if he somehow learnt the secret of Will's meta-knowledge of the Marvel world, it would be game over. At this time, the Patek Philippe watch also turned digital and his bodyguard's voice rang in his ear. Boss, something's wrong. Ethan might be compromised. He's currently leading an unidentified purple-skinned male to your location. Permission to engage. No. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. But the next thing he heard was a thin nasally voice saying, "Hey you. Follow me as well. Follow only my orders from now on." Yes. This was Brock. It seems that Brock was also gone. Will had no time to waste anymore. Harry, we have to run, he said, standing up. Peter and Gwen, you guys also follow. It's dangerous here. What happened? No time to explain. Follow me, he exclaimed, dragging Harry, Peter and Gwen with him. With 3 of them leaving, Harry, Aunt May, and Mrs. Stacy naturally had no choice but to follow. Mr. Osborn, what is going on here? Mr. Johnson demanded, looking pissed. This place is dangerous. Everyone must leave immediately, he said in a loud voice, making sure everyone heard it. But even then, his steps didn't pause at all. Unfortunately, his young appearance played a negative role this time, as most people didn't believe him. Kid, stop playing pranks. No one's gonna be afraid with a cop here, said Harrison Thompson, looking disdainful. Mr. Osborn, please return to your seat, Mr. Johnson also said in a stern tone. This is a fully secured area with no possibility of danger. I urge you to stop disrupting the meeting for your childish amusement. This Mr. Johnson is one of those guys who lives in delusion. He has this sense of superiority that since he is a teacher so everyone should respect him, no matter their background. Especially those who are younger than him. In his petty mind, all he cares about is his impression in front of kids, and if anyone tries to undermine his authority, he would retaliate purely out of personal malice rather than for the sake of teaching a lesson. If he had believed Will and cooperated with him, many other people in this room could have escaped the danger. But no matter what, nothing was going to stop him from running the fuck away from this place. While everyone was still confused, Will and his group had reached the door. Mr. Osborn, enough is, Mr. Johnson came to stop him by force, but Will simply pushed away, leaving the class. He wasn't going to waste any more words. Anyways, he had already taken all the important people out of the class. But Harry didn't think so. Patricia, come quickly, he shouted. MJ, you should leave too. Will doesn't joke around. This was of course Peter. Will had a headache at these love-brained idiots. Will looked at the corridor and was relieved to see no one other than his remaining 2 bodyguards at the door, John and Rocky. It's code red. Take everyone and follow me, he ordered as he strapped his briefcase to his back. He then picked up the love-brained Harry and Peter and started running in the opposite direction of the staircase. The first thing when he had hired his bodyguards was to teach them code red, meaning. The bodyguards immediately executed his orders, shielding the women with their bodies and following him. The rest of the people in that room might not know Will. May and the Stacys know that he is absolutely reliable and would not be wrong about such a thing, so the ladies did not protest and followed him as fast as possible. Will's heart was in his throat as he ran while looking behind. Only after everyone turned the first corner of the corridor did he start to breathe again. Knowing his location through the controlled bodyguards, Kilgrave would first go to the class, meaning he could have appeared in the previous corridor at any moment and seen them. And since he didn't appear yet, it means that they are temporarily out of danger. Now, all he has to do is get everyone as far away as possible. Familiar with the building, Will dragged everyone into a utility room. When everyone entered, Will closed the door shut. Don't contact the others. They have been compromised, he said to the bodyguard who was tapping his watch. He put his briefcase down and clicked the button 3 times. Unexpectedly, with a mechanical whirling sound similar to the start of a Windows XP PC, the heavy briefcase transformed. The bottom opened up to form a glider and boots attached and 2 arms stretched from the sides. Will stepped into the boots and inserted his hands into the gloves. As he lifted his hands, the white-colored titanium-reinforced special alloy suit attached itself to his body, the interconnecting wires closing around his frame. Only the helmet was hanging at the chest. It had a similar design as the Black Panther suit except for the pointy metal strips that extended from both sides of the helmet like pointy ears. As Will put on the helmet, it interlocked with the rest of the suit seamlessly, completing the processes. The whole exosuit was completely streamlined, almost like a second skin except for the forearms, which were heavy metal and had 3 different types of blasters each side right above the wrist, and the neck and helmet, which are much thicker for extra protection. The iconic glider had been changed to a hoverboard form to facilitate the briefcase transformation, looking much cooler and compact, albeit at the cost of some speed and flight time. But he still had the full-sized glider in his car. Whoa, cool. Both Peter and Harry couldn't help exclaiming when they saw the suit, completely forgetting about their respective crushes. The ladies seemed impressed too. Aura +10. Aura +5. Aura +10. Aura +10. Aura +2. The whole process only took 5 seconds to 10 seconds and Will was suddenly clad in an absolutely badass combat armor. No time for geeking out, kids. Will made a hand sign and the boots detached from the hoverboard. He then ran forward and kicked the window on the other end of the room. BAAM. The window was broken right from the hinges. He then set the launchers on his wrist to web fluid and shot out a bunch of webs below and connected them to the window, effectively forming a, complete with extra padding at the end to break the momentum. That's my web fluid, Peter exclaimed in amazement with a, it can also be used like this kind of look. Yeah, everyone, go down now, he said, unceremoniously throwing Peter and Harry out. The duo slid down the slope, bumping side to side before reaching the cushioned ground. Wait, can you at least tell us what's wrong? Asked Aunt May as Will sat her on the slide. Yes, Will, what are we running from? Mrs. Stacy also echoed. Will had no choice but to explain. A very dangerous person is coming to get me. 2 of my bodyguards are already down. He doesn't care about human lives, so you guys need to get out before this place becomes chaotic, Will summarized rapidly. Is that enough? Before Aunt May could nod, Will pushed her out. Mrs. Stacy, as the police captain's wife, was much more adaptive as she helped Gwen to the window. I'll call George for help, she said before climbing up herself. Will nodded. Don't tell him about the suit though. You know, this suit is illegal, he told her in a mischievous tone. Wait, what about the rest of the people in there? Gwen was quick to notice the problem. If Will is so hellbent on taking them away from the classroom, it means that the rest of the parents and students in the class are currently in danger. Don't worry. I'm going to protect them. Protect them. You are not leaving. Before she could waste more time, Will pushed her and Mrs. Stacy too. Meanwhile, his and the bodyguards' cars had already self-driven right below the window. Will made a hand gesture and the hood of his car opened, and the full-sized goblin glider flew up in his direction. It should be called the Elf Glider now. Running on special Oscorp fuel cells, it had higher fuel capacity and had a more dangerous arsenal. Will didn't really intend to use it, but he still kept it as a backup. Go. Take them to safety, he said to the two bodyguards, throwing them the car keys. Use moderate force if they resist, he added, knowing the group consisted of 3 teenagers and 2 very emotional women. He could already imagine the drama. Also, strictly tell everyone to keep quiet about my combat suit. Tell them lies like it's related to national security and the government and military is involved or something, he added. Now go. Yes, boss. The bodyguards, who were trained not to question Will's decision during emergencies, immediately jumped down, escorting the group to the cars. Will turned around, checking his equipment. Yep, he decided not to run away. Sure, he didn't have superpowers, but he had meta-knowledge, which can also be a superpower if used right. He knows Kilgrave's mind control ability is not invincible. It works only when the victims come in contact with his mind-controlling pheromones and listen to his orders. Knowing this, there are several conditions which can stop his powers. First is, of course, not to get in contact with Kilgrave's mind-controlling pheromones. Secondly, when Kilgrave is unable to speak. And the third one, when people are unable to listen to him. If Kilgrave had managed to take Will by surprise, he might have succeeded. But now that he's on guard, it's a whole different story. Now, question is whether to kill him directly through sniper or try to capture him alive. On the other hand, Kilgrave leisurely strode through the corridor, flanked by his 2 new bodyguards. He really loves this power from the bottom of his heart. To be able to take over anyone. So, imagine his surprise when one day his parents contacted him to tell him that he still had hope, and that they were actually very close to working out a cure for his condition. Kilgrave couldn't let that happen, could he? Kilgrave first wanted to infiltrate the company and quietly take over everyone. Too bad, he found out through his parents that the company's security was completely automated and Will's home location could not be traced at all. So, he was left with no choice but to keep in contact with his parents and find the right opportunity. And it worked. His parents told him that Will had gone to his brother's high school. So, here he was, taking control over this Osborn brat to get to shut down this Project Delete, all data and kill anyone involved. Obviously, he would also teach the kid a good lesson before that. Is this the classroom? He asked the mind-controlled bodyguard Brock. Upon confirmation, Kilgrave opened the door a little bit and let his pheromones affect everyone in the room. Everyone, stay still, he shouted in a voice that should be audible to the whole classroom. Suddenly, the noise coming from inside the class disappeared, as if someone had just hit the pause button. He then adjusted his hat and slowly walked in, his eyes searching for the Osborn heir in the crowd. The brat's pictures are also rare. He had to ask his parents for it to even know who he had to take over. Kilgrave frowned. He couldn't find that face. Where is William Osborn? He asked the teacher. He just left. Kilgrave's eyes widened. Left? Why? He just said it's dangerous here and left with 5 other people. Of course, no one else believed him. Kilgrave's face looked like he had eaten a fly. When did he leave? Not long ago. At this moment, the loud sound of an engine revving sounded, followed by the screeching of tires. Kilgrave quickly ran to the window, only to see the tail lights of a very conspicuous sports car leaving through the gates. The security guard, who was still under Kilgrave's control, having the order to stop anyone from leaving, tried to stop the car but it directly blew open the gates without getting a dent. A black car also followed it, which Kilgrave recognized as the bodyguard car. Fuck me, he muttered, realizing that the opportunity was gone. There was no way he could catch up. His gaze turned to the rest of the class. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 5. Fighting Jessica Jones. Fuck me, he muttered, realizing that the opportunity was gone. There was no way he could catch up. Unexpectedly, the beautiful woman sitting in front of him seemed to take it literally as she stood up and approached him, taking his word as command. Kilgrave was extremely angry right and urgently needed something to vent. Seeing the reluctant woman, his violent urges could not be suppressed at all. He bent the woman right over the husband, lifted her skirt and slapped her butt heavily. "What are you doing?" her husband shouted at this moment, looking completely enraged. He actually stood up and directly punched Kilgrave right in the face, making him fall. "Stop," Kilgrave ordered. But contrary to his expectations, the guy didn't stop at all as he continued to rain down punches at him. "Everyone! Stop him!" Suddenly everyone stood up and began pulling the guy off of Kilgrave. He slowly stood up and dusted off suit. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "You must be deaf, right? My powers don't work on deaf people," he muttered, more to himself than to the guy who can't hear. "Everyone, hold him down and gag him. Now, beat him up." Kilgrave was absolutely furious right now. For such a long time, he hadn't been disrespected like this. For this reason, he decided that everyone in here was going to die. But before that, I need to have some fun, he thought, looking at the man being beaten up, still looking back at his lovely wife. Suddenly, a tall girl pushed through the crowd and stomped on the man's head. The man just happened to turn his head due to another kick, narrowly avoiding the hit. And it was a good thing that he did, because boom. In the next, the whole room shook as the girl's kick directly broke through the tiles, sending out shards everywhere. Unaffected, the girl was about to stomp again. "Stop," Kilgrave ordered, preventing her from killing the man. That would not be fun enough. Since his command wasn't specific, everyone else stopped beating the man too. But Kilgrave's attention was preoccupied by the girl. For a moment, Kilgrave was really unable to believe it. This girl might be like him. Meaning she might also have superpowers. You punch the floor. And so Jessica did, creating another small crater in the floor. But Jessica's fist was still completely intact. It's true. Kilgrave threw his head back and actually laughed out aloud. He was so happy right now. He longer cared about the fucking Osborn. While he had mind control powers, he was still a complete mortal after all. If someone managed to take him by surprise, he had no means to protect him, and if he had powerful opponents like Osborn, he seriously lacked the muscle. This has been severely limiting his range of activities for a long time. But no more. Now, he had his own weapon and shield. "What's your name?" he asked seriously. "Jessica. Jessica Jones." "All right, Jessica, jump." Jessica complied, jumping several feet high, almost reaching the ceiling. "Take off your jacket. Roll on the ground." Kilgrave gave her several commands, escalating the difficulty each time. And with each command, his control over her grew stronger. Finally, after several more commands, Kilgrave nodded in satisfaction. "Haha, nice. Do exactly as I say from now on." Kilgrave couldn't stop smiling, looking at his new toy. "Come here," he ordered. Kilgrave grabbed her chin, looking at the girl closely. Dark brown hair, hazel eyes, and curvy body that could fill up her tall frame, the girl was quite beautiful. His loins stirred. Alright, now he was completely in the mood. Since everyone except the girl is going to die anyway, Kilgrave might as well enjoy himself fully before sending them off. You, and you. Come over as well. Rest, keep holding the man down and make way." Kilgrave has grown a habit of having multiple women serve him at once, so selected 3 more good-looking girls from the crowd to start the fun. Still feeling the throbbing in his cheek due to the punch, Kilgrave glanced at the married woman. "Let's start with you." Then, under the tortured gaze of the deaf man, who was also gagged, Kilgrave had his wife give him a blowjob. After that, he bent her over in front of her husband and slapped her ass, preparing to take her right there. Snap. But the husband, who had been forced to watch until now, burst out with one last struggle and actually managed to free one hand. And with that hand, he actually pulled out a gun, aiming it right at Kilgrave. Bang! There was a gunshot and Kilgrave, who was still focused on the wife, was completely frightened as blood spattered on his face. There was a hole in the neck of the wife. It turned out that the crowd had managed to hold the man down once again, deviating his aim. No. The man's scream was completely muffled by the cloth. Unfortunately, the same could be said about the gunshot. "Kill him first," Kilgrave ordered, completely furious at the bastard who didn't know his own place. Fatal hits rained down on the poor man. But while kicking him, people's reactions were varied. Some were panicked, some were crying, some were asking Kilgrave to not do this. The noise only increased when the man seemed to be dead. Everyone, keep your mouth shut until I say otherwise, he ordered in annoyance. Looking at the dead wife, Kilgrave's heart was still palpitating, knowing that it could have been him. He realized that he had gotten too drunk on his powers. You protect me from every danger from now on, he ordered Jessica, now valuing her even more. Now, all he has to do is order everyone to stop breathing and leave this place quickly. But before he could give the order, the door, which had been completely locked, was broken through and spider webs were shot at him, specifically targeting his face. Stop it! Kilgrave, who was literally caught with pants down, jumped in fright, almost shouting the command instinctually. But he knew that it was already too late. But before he could even comprehend the situation, a hand stretched out in front of him, blocking the webs. Question mark? Will looked at the girl who had suddenly appeared in his way. He remembered her, she was Patricia's sister. How the fuck? Looking at her nonchalantly pulling the web off her hand, Will was a bit dumbfounded. The launching power of his web can be adjusted based on how tightly he clenches his fingers when shooting the web. And just now, it was close to the max intensity. He not only intended to shut Kilgrave's mouth with that web but also deliver a good concussion and break a few bones along the way too. But even then, the girl was able to somehow block it. Maybe, the shooter's power didn't work. Iris, execute plan B, Will said immediately. A screeching sound reverberated throughout the classroom, making everything else inaudible. Web fluid to the mouth should have done the trick. But since failure was not an option, Will had still made several arrangements before coming here. First he had to seal his suit completely, making sure no air could leak in so that he himself would be affected by Kilgrave's pheromone. Then he stole several louder speakers from the auditorium and set them up in front of the door. He could have made more preparation but then he heard the gunshot, after which he could not delay anymore. Now it seems that he was right to be cautious. Kill him. Kilgrave yelled, but no one could hear it at all, everyone covering their ears due to the screeching sound. But apparently, this did not apply to Patricia's sister as she closed the distance in a handful of long, predatory strides, her fist arcing toward his face with lethal precision. Will's reflexes flared, one arm snapped up to intercept the strike, the other still braced firmly against Kilgrave's mouth. A heartbeat later, an overwhelming force surged through his guard, raw power channeled into bone and muscle, catching him completely unprepared. The impact tore through his balance, hurling him backward several meters before he stabilized his hoverboard. On the other hand, Will shook his head, which was still ringing. He caught the punch but unable to stop the momentum, his own hand had hit his face. What the fuck? Super strength. Who is this girl? Will recalled a conversation Harry had with Patricia. This is my sister Jessica. Jessica. In an instant, the realization dawned on him. Jessica Jones. But how? He hadn't read any comic settings in which she had a sister named Patricia. Wait, there was a TV series too. Will realized, vaguely remembering that there was Jessica Jones TV series that he hadn't bothered to watch. This world is a mix of different types of Marvel stories. Obviously, there are things that he hadn't read or seen and it was now coming to bite him in the ass. Now the problem is, if that's indeed Jessica Jones, then he is really fucked. Will didn't have the luxury to think more as Jessica had reached him again by the time he stabilized himself. But this time, Will was prepared. Will dodged her superfast punch and countered with an uppercut that hit her with a force that left the ground. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to hurt as much since while still in air, she delivered an impossible, completely clumsy kick at his midsection. Worse, the kick still had a force that didn't seem to follow the laws of physics at all. Gah! The breath was knocked out of his mouth from impact as he crashed into the wall beside them. While his goblin armor does enhance strength using bioelectricity, it is still far from the force of nature that is Jessica Jones. He flew sideways just in time to avoid the next punch that put a hole in the wall. But when she still punched in the same pattern the next time, he caught her wrist, gripped her neck with the other hand and used her momentum to slam her into the ground with all his might in one fluid motion. Despite all her overpowered abilities, this version of Jessica doesn't seem to know how to fight at all. While her actions are fast, they are completely basic and predictable, making it possible for Will to at least put up a fight. After that grand slam, Will expected the girl at least to be a bit phased. She was not. She kicked out right after falling and got up to punch him like she felt nothing at all. Now, her punches were becoming much faster and smooth and she was even mixing in kicks. She's adapting fast. Will realized, much to his horror. Had Will not had the assistance of the hoverboard, making his movements fast and smooth, he would long have been smashed into a meat paste. Alright, heavy hitting it is. Will stopped holding back. He didn't want to hurt Jessica, but the situation left him with no choice. His chest, hand, and face were still hurting the 2 hits he had received. And those hits weren't even half the strength of the ones he was facing now. Will suddenly flew backwards, making a hand gesture. In response, the green light emitting beneath the hoverboard began to intensify, the energy turbines, rotating faster. Stick. As Jessica followed, Will shot 3 webs in rapid succession. One at her face, blocking her vision, one at her feet, disrupting her movements, and then one at her chest, pulling her forward with all his might. At the same time, his hoverboard released the energy it had charged, propelling him forward with incredible force. Will bent his knee and drove it straight into Jessica's gut. BAAM. This was the most he could do while still being non-fatal. Otherwise, the knee could have been aimed at her neck, or he could have replaced the knee with a retractable blade that can pop out of the hoverboard. Jessica was thrown back like a rag doll, grimacing in pain, and Will used this opportunity to cover her in web, making sure she can't break loose immediately while he deals with Kilgrave. Only then did he have get the chance to aim his launcher at Kilgrave, ready to shoot the fucker down. But, he had to stop. Because he saw the short and scrawny man hiding behind a girl, holding a gun to her head. He must have assumed that Will was one of those good guys who can be stopped by taking hostages. But Will doesn't care about risking 1 or 2 lives at all if it means ending this loser. It's just that, the girl happened to be Jessica's so-called sister. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 6. Rescue. How to say it. When Kilgrave discovered Jessica's powers, he thought he had found a treasure. Well, Will is not much different. He also wants to recruit Jessica. It's just that he is not as tasteless as Kilgrave and wants Jessica to follow him willingly. That means he needs to save Patricia. The noise from the speakers was still deafening. But Will was aware that people had started to appear behind him. Before taking action, he had sealed both sides of the corridor with webs to prevent interruption. Now it seems that they have finally managed to break through. When Kilgrave saw more people appearing, he also knew that the situation was fucked up. He can't take control over the school at the same time. After all, there was a range limit of his pheromones. There was also an armored man who can shoot projectiles and who is after him for some reason, probably Osborn's guardian. In a second, he made the decision to cut his losses. He has ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut. So at least for 12 hours, they can't speak a word. Later, he can directly manipulate the police and erase all evidence. Right now, what matters is escape alive and not escalate this matter further, so that he can clean up easily. While still holding the blonde girl hostage, he quickly approached Jessica, who had almost freed herself. "Take me out of here. Right now," he shouted in her ear. Jessica's eyes were on her sister, but her body still faithfully executed the command. She broke the window and picked him up, shielding him from the armored guy's line of fire. "So, you know her?" Kilgrave asked as he pushed the blonde girl forward, causing the masked man to quickly fly towards her. At this moment, a sinister smile flashed across Kilgrave's lips as he emptied the magazine on the 2 of them. The first one hit the girl while the rest hit the man who was shielding her. Jessica screamed desperately while Will and Patricia were hit. But both her body and mouth could not be used at all. "Take me away. Quick!" Kilgrave yelled into Jessica's ear as he saw the man fall down with the girl. Still shielding him, Jessica jumped from the window, tears pouring down her eyes. Meanwhile, Will got up with a slight groan. If the suit could be damaged by a Glock 19, then there's no point in spending billions of dollars on its research and development. He quickly checked Patricia's injuries. She had a gunshot wound to her lower back. The bullet did not hit the spine, but it might have reached the kidney, which is also fatal if she didn't get surgery immediately. Patricia seemed to be lucid right now as she was breathing quickly, whimpering sounds escaping her throat. But even then, her eyes were looking in the direction of the window from which Jessica had jumped. "Stay still. Keep breathing and keep your eyes open," said Will as he accessed the injuries. Yep, the bullet had indeed grazed the kidney. Immediate treatment was needed. Will sealed the wound with webs and applied gentle compression while also propping her up legs to promote blood circulation. "NYPD. Free. Put your hands behind your back and lie down." "Are you serious?" Will couldn't believe the timing of the police. He was really pissed now, so he wasn't in the mood to explain things to the police. As Will stood up, a ball was rolled out towards the police, which they failed to notice amidst the chaos. Will shielded Patricia's eyes and ears as the stun grenade went off, making everyone close their eyes. Then he carried Patricia through the same window through which Kilgrave and Jessica had escaped. On his way, he also retrieved the secret camera of the nerd using the web shooter. This old camera has just recorded some really big things like Jessica's powers, and the fact Kilgrave actually came here to find Will. He can't let it fall into the hands of the police. Outside, the police cars were parked everywhere and the gates had been sealed. Jessica had already reached the school's side boundary wall. With an effortless leap, she crossed the wall and continued running at an incredible pace, burrowing alleys behind the school. Will finally managed to catch up just in time before they could escape into the maze of small alleys. He's here. Run faster. Kilgrave cursed as he saw Will glider flying over. But even if Jessica was faster, she really couldn't go fast enough to evade the pursuit of Will's modified glider. Even if the glider has been miniaturized into a hoverboard designed to look cooler and be able to fit into the briefcase, it still has the top speed of 100 miles per hour for a short period of time. They passed by a few homeless people and Kilgrave ordered them to choke themselves. Save those people first, or they'll die, he yelled to Will. Seriously. Will's mask couldn't express his deadpan pan. But still, he did slow down, making Kilgrave think he had succeeded, thus preventing him from making further desperate moves. But the turbines of Will's hoverboard instead started to rotate faster. The green-colored energy generated began to be transmitted into his suit, ultimately reaching the launcher in his hand. Yep, he was done playing with webs. For this bastard, Will was going to use the second mode of his launchers, energy beams. As soon as the launcher was charged, he suddenly held Patricia with one hand, aimed at Jessica's feet with the charged hand and fired directly, no shits given. This left Kilgrave no time to even detect the danger, let alone warn Jessica. The green beam hit Jessica right in the knee, causing her to stumble and fall. Falling at such an incredible speed, she was even more injured, not to mention Kilgrave, who didn't even have a superhuman body. Will didn't stop at all. The lenses in his helmet zoomed in and as soon as he saw the laser dot was pointing at Kilgrave, he shot again. This time, a horrific sound came out of Kilgrave's mouth, which had been shot through by the laser. Try giving orders now, you bastard. Will drifted toward the pair, the faint hum of his hoverboard barely audible as its lights faded to a dull glow. The specialized fuel cells had long since been exhausted, every drop siphoned into overcharging the blaster. Jessica made a desperate attempt to rise. Without hesitation, Will leveled his hand and fired again, the residual charge lancing through her other foot. She collapsed back with a cry, now unable to protect Kilgrave from what was about to happen next. He was sure Jessica wouldn't mind. After all, he was doing this to take her sister to safety faster. Just for safety, he also threw over another ball-shaped stun grenade, temporarily blinding the two troublesome opponents. As he closed the distance, the shadow of his full-sized goblin glider swept into view, gliding to a halt before him. It had been tailing him faithfully ever since he departed the school building. He mentally commended himself for keeping it in reserve. With practiced ease, he guided the hoverboard into the recessed docking slot at the glider's center. It slid into place with a satisfying click, automatically interlocking as the two machines became one. He aimed it at Jessica and let the ropes of web come fly. This glider had a higher web fluid capacity and could shoot thicker, much stronger webs which were completely capable of binding a weakened Jessica. With that done, he finally approached Kilgrave, who was still unable to see properly, muttering gibberish with his face below the nose completely destroyed. He detached his boot, kicked Kilgrave down. He then stepped on his crotch and twisted his foot viciously, extracting unintelligible wails from the guy. You should have just stayed in the darkness like the scrawny rat you are. But no. Will kicked him. You just, again, had to go and provoke someone like me. Will kicked him for each word, his struggles literally negligible against someone who just went toe-to-toe against a superhuman. I don't usually like to torture anyone, but for you, I'll make an exception, he said, tightly securing the waist with webs. Will still has to find out why this bastard came after him in the first place. That would need some torture. He would also make a great research subject for Helen. It can be said that Kilgrave's fate is going to be worse than death. But Will didn't feel sorry at all. This person has ruined so many lives. Imagine all the fucked up things you can do if you have complete control over anyone you want. Whatever your sane brain can imagine, this bastard has done 10 times worse things using his powers. Need a demo. forcing families to have sex with each other, kill each other, and then eat each other, and have a smile on their face the whole time. Why did he do this? For no apparent reason. If Will had not brought in the butterfly effect, according to the usual plot of comics, the bastard would have still found Jessica a few years later, taking control over her for months before she could break free. During those months, it can be imagined what would have happened. The fragmented memories of those months would have permanently traumatized Jessica, forcing her to live the rest of her life with the guilt, disgust, and self-loathing due to the things she did. That's why, if Will simply gave him a quick death, it would be a sin. Sin against those who suffered and are still suffering because of him. Will jumped back onto his glider. A few seconds later, he was high in the sky, flying at top speed with Patricia in arms. Dangling below his glider were two web cocoons with only their noses exposed. Next time, I'm bringing a lot of sedatives, he swore, his whole body now aching due to the fight. The amount of trouble he went through just because of Jessica. It's a good thing that she didn't go all out. Or rather, she has no idea how to. Kilgrave ordered her to kill him, and what does she do? Punches him in the face with not even her full power. Along with sedatives, he has also gotten a few more inspirations. A healing serum, or some kind of nice first aid equipment that can contain the injuries till treatment. Just now, he was really helpless when Patricia was shot. He also needs to train his AI Iris more. He could teach it more medical knowledge so that it can analyze wounds and diseases and give treatment steps. He could also teach it to read and predict the opponent's movement patterns and devise targeted fighting sequences, etc. Right now, his AI is the best normal geniuses can make. He needs to take it a step further. While Will was still thinking of new things to add in his suit, he had already arrived at his company. Logging into the system from a distance, he directly bypassed the security and flew straight into Helen's lab through the secret passage. But the doctor in question was nowhere to be seen. Helen, where are you? Will was suddenly not so calm. Why did Kilgrave come specifically for him? Was his company also attacked at the same time? He checked the bedroom and found it empty. Without thinking, he quickly rushed into the bathroom, only to find her wiping herself with a towel, completely naked and wet. Will was still completely suited in light elf armor. Naturally, Helen shrieked, picking up the hair drying and aiming it at him like a gun. Hey, it's me. Will quickly removed his helmet and raised his hands in surrender. Will, what are you wearing? And what happened to your face? My face. Will looked at the nearby mirror and cursed. That second-hand punch he received from Jessica had bruised his left eye completely. He had thought only his left lens was malfunctioning, turns out it was the eye too. I was actually attacked. I just somehow thought that you might have been too, so I barged in, he explained concisely, turning to leave. Throw on a bathrobe and come out quickly, there's an emergency. Helen got serious, doing exactly that. How were you attacked? Is there any serious injury? I'm fine. But I brought a girl with me who needs treatment. A gunshot to the back. The kidney might be grazed. Alright, let go, said Helen, walking over while tying her bathrobe. Also, I really like the tattoo above your butt. It's a really erotic pattern, Will added while walking. 3 comments 0 vote. Chapter 7. Going public. Helen closed her eyes in shame, already knowing the amount of teasing she'll have to bear. Can you please erase that from your memory? I lost a bet with my friend in college. 10 minutes later, Helen took off her mask and breathed a sign of relief. Fortunately, whatever you used to stop her rupture worked really well. I just had to take out the bullet and recreate the damaged tissues and do some minor damage control. Helen of course also had experience as a doctor too. In fact, being able to create something as groundbreaking at Regeneration Cradle, her medical expertise is higher than most doctors. Even if the damage to the kidney was serious, Helen could have handled it using the Regeneration Cradle. That's why he directly brought Patricia here. Will also directly plant his butt on the ground, completely exhausted. Both Kilgrave and Jessica had also been locked in separate rooms, tied up and heavily sedated. So, Will could finally afford to relax now. Iris, unlock the suit. The interlocked microwires opened with soft humming noises and the suit was finally turned off. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. With the suit's enhancement gone, Will suddenly felt a sharp pain all over his body, especially the chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. What's more, he realized that he had no strength left at all. Even Helen could beat him up right now and he won't be able to resist. He already knows the reason for this. The combat suit actually uses the body's own bioelectricity to strengthen it. Meaning the strength multiplier that enabled him to fight Jessica actually came at a price. He only wore it for a total of less than an hour and he was already at his limit. That's why the goblin suit is only worn by those who have consumed goblin serum. Due to the mental instability risks, Will has not consumed the serum. The only reason he could still wear the suit for so long is because he has trained his body to the peak since young while also consuming various enhancing supplements that he got Norman to put into development specifically for him. On top of that, he has also been through 2 sessions of Dr. Helen's latest cradle reconstruction pod, which has also further improved his physical stats. The body of an average male can suffer severe harm when wearing the suit. After all, even Will is also currently in a state of complete powerlessness. Helen, I need help, Will finally said, having no choice. Helen, who was just about to go inside and put on some actual clothes instead of a bathrobe, looked back at him in puzzlement. What else? Can you help me take off this armor? Helen swallowed. Well, okay. With the help of Helen, Will finally peeled away the armor from his torso, revealing the completely sweat-soaked shirt. Slowly, Will wheezed, chest throbbing from pain. Do you actually have more injuries? Helen frowned. She could actually see different colors on his chest through the soaked shirt. She tore open the shirt and gasped. I thought you said you were fine. She exclaimed, looking at the deep purple bruising spreading over one side of his chest where Jessica's kick had landed. There were dark red blotches over the ribs and the surface was slightly uneven, showing that at least few ribs had cracked. Taking a closer look, Helen drew a breath through clenched teeth, as if she could feel the pain. Broken ribs and subdermal bleeding. Were you planning on telling after you died from pain? I could have at least given you some pain meds. It would not have interrupted the girl's treatment. Aura +15. Aura +15. Aura +15. Actually, the suit was taking away most of the pain and holding the ribs together. That's why Will didn't bother until now. But looking at the aura prompts, Will decided to let her live in her delusions. Ahem, there's more, he said, taking off the gloves, revealing his bruised fists and forearms that he had used to block and deflect Jessica's attacks. Also, he slowly turned around while winking, showing at least 10 more purple bruises on his back. These ones are from a Glock. You were shot more than 10 times. Helen's voice rose several octaves. Well, I was protecting the girl. Will said nothing more, just looking blankly at the endless waves of aura while Helen gently caressed his injuries with heartache. How to say it? Aura farming is actually kind of fun. And he might be getting addicted to it. The treatment he received from Dr. Helen after that made him think that getting hurt was worth it. He is much better than other heroes in this regard. At least he had his own personal sexy and gentle doctor to treat him after he gets hurt instead of a dramatic heroine who complains at every turn. What's more, Dr. Helen provides treatment in a loosely tied bathrobe and even bends over to blow on the wounds after personally applying the healing lotion, providing him with a generous view. After treating all the minor injuries, including the one on his face, she finally treated the broken ribs, aligning them back with Oscorp's nanofiber scaffolding technology. She also temporarily reinforced the ribs, allowing him normal movements till the ribs fully heal. This treatment was not as fun, especially since Will insisted on staying awake the whole time. He cannot afford to sleep yet. The aftermath of the matter still needs to be handled. After it was finally over, Will sat in front of the supercomputer and connected with Iris. Can you tell me what happened now? Helen asked, sitting beside him, now fully dressed. Will was silent for a moment, but then he just decided not to hide it. I was attacked by a person who can control people's minds, and a girl with physical abilities superior to Captain America. Stop joking. He directly played the video taken by the nerd's camera on a separate screen for Helen to watch. Meanwhile, Will flipped through the major news channels of America. This was his first appearance in the light elf suit. In order to be able to continue using it without restrictions, he has to somehow create a positive image. Looking through the major news channels of America, he found that all of them were vigorously reporting on the school shooting that took place in Midtown High School of New York during the PTC, which also resulted in 2 deaths. The reporters were working hard on digging out exactly what happened, trying to interview the police and the people involved. But the police was adamant on not disclosing anything to the public. All they revealed was a blurry image of a person in a futuristic white combat suit with a hoverboard, and also a video of the same individual actually flying away through the window. Fuck. You really don't know what's good for you, huh? Even though Will had expected something like this to happen, he was still pissed. But no matter. As long as he has the video recording of the actual events, no one can tarnish his image. That's why he had decisively left the scene without clarification to chase after Kilgrave. After all, PR can be easily handled, Kilgrave needed to be stopped permanently. Will is really not the type of idiot who would let his enemies escape every time, only to return stronger and attack him again and again. Now that he finally had time, Will started the work on his PR. He first edited the video. He removed all mentions of Osborn and then edited out all parts that showed Jessica's abnormality. Then, also blurred the faces of all girls whom Kilgrave had called out and also censored Jessica's name. He knows that when Kilgrave's "keep your mouth shut" command wears off by tomorrow, the parents will be interviewed and Jessica's information will be leaked. But it would still be hearsay after all, instead of direct video proof. This way, Will would have an easier time protecting her. After he was done, the final video was like this. Kilgrave mind controls all the students and parents in a classroom. Forces a married woman, finds out her husband is deaf and then clearly states his powers don't work on deaf people. Orders everyone to beat up her husband. Forces Jessica to do minor things like rolling on the ground or barking like a dog. Nothing related to her superpowers. Forces MJ, Liz and Patricia to start stripping while he gets a blowjob from the married woman only to be interrupted by a gunshot from the husband. Orders the man to be killed. Hero in shining white and green armor arrives. Kilgrave takes Patricia hostage to escape. Hero saves Beauty and takes bullets for her. Kilgrave jumps through the window. Police arrives and points guns at the hero who is trying to save the injured girl. The movie ends here. For post-production, we'll also enhance the quality of the video to the highest definition, enhanced sound quality, added subtitles in case anyone missed Kilgrave's disgusting orders. He also blurred the faces of the girls and also removed any mention of Jessica's name. Will really wanted to show his and Jessica's fight and gain more aura, but then he won't be able to keep her. Imagine, you have a person with superpowers under you and you advertise this to the world yourself. General sent the whole military for Hulk. And that's just one Marvel villain. Has Will grown to the point that he can face all the villains by himself? No. Can he just stay away from Jessica after this and give up recruiting her? Also no. So, Will figured there'd be plenty more opportunities to aura farm. And without confirming whether he would actually get any rewards, it's better to play safe. For now. That's why he had to remove her from the video. Without this, only the parents would know about Jessica's powers, which is much more easier to deal with, but still troublesome enough that Jessica would inevitably need his help. He would, of course, graciously oblige. Will then had Iris search mentions of all the things related to Kilgrave in the past few years. He found several hits in the database of WhatsApp and Facebook and several more on other platforms. There were also a few videos of Kilgrave and interviews of victims as well which had been uploaded to Facebook or sent on WhatsApp but then deleted. Overall, the evidence was overwhelming and conclusive. After all, Kilgrave is not exactly subtle in his gross actions. Will directly sent all this information to all major news stations across America through different IPs. Along with it he also threw in the information of the victims who were still alive so that their own reporters could have a share of credit. No need to thank me, he smirked. Then, just to be a bit extra, also set the video to be uploaded on Facebook and YouTube through anonymous accounts at different times, making it look that one was original while the others had simply reposted. He also set the algorithm to give them traction. After that, leaned back on his seat and looked at the police commissioner who was swearing to hunt down the white-armored terrorist. Nice try, idiots, but I'm not your friendly Spider-Man who would be used as a scapegoat for convenience. Just when he was done, Helen's uncut uncensored video also ended as she sat in her seat, completely stunned. He came specifically for you, that means, if you hadn't received the warning, you might have controlled like the rest. She asked, her voice shaky. Remove. Might. I would have been controlled. And he might have used me to come here and control you. Helen recalled the disgusting things Kilgrave did to the deaf man's wife and shuddered immediately. But the good thing is, I have trained my bodyguards for this kind of thing. They always stay separated to avoid collective takedown and they immediately report at the slightest suspicions. And that person in white combat armor, that was really you. Yeah, isn't that obvious? No, I just didn't know you could fight like that, said murmured, looking at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Helen's first reaction was amazement. But then, she suddenly hit him with her weak fist. If you did get the warning, why did you not simply run away with the rest? Why did you have to come back? What if you were controlled? Will could only shrug helplessly. Well, actually, I already knew about the man's abilities. I would have taken him down without any risk. Who would have thought he would suddenly take control over a superhuman? Will was also a victim in this matter. Besides, I still had to know exactly why he came after me. If someone sent him, they could easily send someone else too. Helen had to nod upon hearing this. Why would Kilgrave risk coming after the Osborns, who are known for their ruthlessness? So, how will you find out now? She asked, also worried. Will shrugged. I'll interrogate him, of course. But didn't the two of them run away through the window? How will you even find them? Oh, I still caught them. Remember the two cocoons I brought? That was them. Question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark. Helen was silent for a second, her eyes widening dramatically. You brought them to my lab. 3 comments 0 vote. Chapter 8. Jessica wakes up. Guys, I skipped posting the actual chapter 3 by mistake. What you read after chapter 2 was chapter 4. I've fixed it now, so please check out chapter 3. You brought them to my lab. Relax. They are heavily sedated and completely bound. Will had done with while Helen was still busy saving Patricia so she hadn't noticed. After that, Will had to bring Helen along to double check on Jessica and Kilgrave's harmlessness, to reassure her. He also had to explain exactly how Kilgrave's powers work and its weaknesses, which made her fear go away and even made her eyes brighten, realizing what a valuable research subject Will had brought. Will then fell asleep on the computer desk while watching the news updates on the Midtown High situation. When he opened his eyes, he found himself lying in a soft bed. Also, his hand seemed to be enveloped in a soft feeling. He turned his head to the side, only to see a gorgeous woman sleeping beside him, hugging his arm to her chest. It was Helen. Her hair, dark and silky, was a gentle mess across the pillow, a few stray strands brushing over her lips. Her face, which is usually stern, was softened in a sleep state, brows relaxed and mouth slightly parted. She clung to his arm with a lazy possessiveness, the curve of her figure outlined beneath the sheets in a way that was both disarmingly cute and quietly dangerous. Will tore his eyes away from her to the time on his wristwatch and had to take a double take. It was already the morning of the next day. Somehow, he had slept for more than evening and the whole night. He checked the system interface and was shocked to see the huge increase in the aura. It seems his PR yesterday has worked. Though, the mission completely prompt was still not here yet. His stomach made a rumbling sound at this moment and Will realized he hadn't eaten at all after the morning meal. What's more, he also has to check on Jessica and Kilgrave. God knows if that monstrous girl breaks free, and even if Kilgrave's mouth is unusable, his luck cannot be accounted for. Will slowly reluctantly began to retract his hand from Helen's embrace. But Helen frowned in her sleep, took a deep breath and tightened her grip on hand. Will could only increase the force. As expected, Helen woke up, looking at Will with sleepy eyes. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. But then, she just closed her eyes right back, hugging his arm again. Helen. Hey, can you stop pretending? I have to check on Jessica. I've been sleeping more than 15 hours. I already did last night, Helen murmured lazily. She has a fast recovery ability. I gave her another dose before going to sleep. Hearing that, Will relaxed a little. What about Kilgrave? You mean Kevin Thompson? He's doing fine. I had the machine seal up his mouth completely. What? His name is actually Kevin Thompson? Will asked, turning his head. Yeah, and he's actually the lost son of Dr. Louise and Albert Thompson. What? How did you know? I was curious about his mind control powers, so I checked his brain, and Will suddenly rolled over, pinning her underneath him. You did what? Do you know how dangerous he is? Single quote. Relax. The whole thing was done by the robotics arms. I was in a different room. Anyways, his brain condition matches the condition that Dr. Albert and Louise described their son Kevin had when they wanted to know the feasibility of Kevin's cure. Fuck, is he really their son? It's true. Their call records show that they've been in contact. And I went through their lab footage and found out that they unknowingly gave him a lot of information, including the fact that you went to your brother's PTC yesterday. Damn, Will really regretted not watching Jessica Jones' series. He had unknowingly recruited the parents of a supervillain. Why did he attack me though? Helen shrugged. There could be many reasons. But I think it's because he was afraid we might have discovered his powers. And he was right. I did get a clue from the samples his parents gave me. I just didn't think it was possible. Will rolled off of her, blankly staring up at the ceiling. It seems that you've done everything. Yep. Helen hugged his hand again. So, stay for a while. His stomach rumbled again at this moment. I'm still starving though. I can arrange that, said Helen, picking up her phone. That's to someone's generosity. We have all the famous cuisines available in the company, prepared by the best chefs. What would you like to order? Will usually only eat scientifically customized meals that provide him with max nutrition. But today, he decided to indulge Helen. She did so much last night without even being asked. I'll take the Japanese A5 Wagyu steak, 12 ounces, the wild-caught halibut with bok choy, and the Chilean sea bass quinoa. Also, an additional portion of the lamb chops, medium rare, no extra starch for some extra protein. And, sweet potato mash, wild rice, and roasted root vegetables for carbs. Helen looked at him, one phone in hand, another still around his arm. Are you gonna finish the whole thing or throw it away? I'll eat it all. I told you, my appetite has increased ever due to the reconstruction pod sessions. Helen quickly ordered the meal word for word without needing him to repeat a thing. Anything else? Yeah, I really need to pee. After a while, Will sat on the bed with his back against the bedrest while Helen fed him the ordered food while also eating herself using chopsticks. Will's hands had been injured, making it inconvenient for him to eat himself. While eating, Will took out his phone to check the response to his edited video. But when he saw the large number of messages and missed calls from Harry, Aunt May and Gwen, he suddenly jumped. Fuck. I forgot to inform others. Oh, I did that too, Helen said casually. Your watch kept lighting up with notifications, so I sent Harry a picture of you bandaged up but safe and told him to inform the others too. Woman, what have you not done for me? It's nothing, said Helen casually, feeding him another bite. Will gripped her hand that was holding the chopsticks. I won't take it for granted. I promise. That's all he could say for now. Whether Helen believed it or not, he was serious. Helen is going to have the backing of a transmigrator. Ah, Helen put away the plate and gently hugged him. Don't think too much. Nuna likes spoiling you, she said, rubbing his head. Will swallowed, adjusting the blanket over his legs. As Helen began feeding him again, Will finally checked the news. Damn, it's all blown up. As expected, the videos Will had posted on Facebook and YouTube had gained millions of views and were also shared and reposted extensively. Will turned on wall-mounted TV and found all new channels talking about the video. Everyone had now learnt about Kilgrave, a person who seems to be able to control people's minds. Currently all major media news channels were continuously reporting the things they had found about the Kilgrave or the school shooting case. All of the people who had witnessed Kilgrave's outrageous acts in the past few years were being interviewed, explaining what happened in detail and how no one had believed them until now. There were also all types of theories explaining Kilgrave's powers. The main one was, of course, that he was a mutant. Yes, the existence of mutants is not a secret in this world, and the Xavier Academy exists as a government-approved, safe haven, for mutants. The only reason mutants are never mentioned in the Marvel movies was because they didn't have the copyright of X-Men, meaning they didn't have the authority to do so. The various mutant associations had already clarified that Kilgrave was certainly not a mutant. Like he was hit by a truck carrying radioactive substances, which gave him powers, while some were claiming he was a test subject who escaped Area 51 where the government does human experimentation. The parents were also out of Kilgrave's control now and thus, Jessica's powers could no longer be hidden anymore. Lastly, there was the white-armored individual who blew away the doors and saved the day, forcing Kilgrave to retreat and also took bullets for the child star, Patsy. This along with the interviews with the parents, and he was now being called the White Knight by the people for saving everyone. Needless to say, after the video evidence and the parents' interview, the police was completely bashed for reporting the White Knight as the fugitive. White Knight, huh? They don't know that the brave White Knight needs his Nuna to feed him, said Helen with a giggle. Will and Helen watched the news together in amusement while they ate. After they were done, it was time to get to work. Helen also knew that, so she did not insist. Helen looked through the results of all the tests she had conducted on Jessica. So, what did you find out? Will asked. It's not coincidental. She has been modified using very high-level gene editing. Of course this kind of thing needs a lot of human experimentation, so we have not gone this route. Artificial, huh? No chance that radioactive substances fell on her and got enhanced. Will asked. That was how the classic Jessica Jones had gotten her powers. But of course, since this world is a combination of many different Marvel stories, Will wouldn't be surprised if that's not the case. Falling into radioactive substances. Of course not possible. What kind of fantasy world are you living in? So, if her powers were scientifically obtained, who did this? Now this was what Will wanted to know. If they find out who was able to do it and get their research or recruit them, it would be a huge gain. That is what I'm trying to investigate now. It seems that she got into a car accident and was sent to the hospital. Curiously, all of her medical bills had been paid even before the Walkers decided to adopt her. Okay, you can stop there. I'll have more professional people look into it. Are you done with the tests? I'm going to wake her up. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Ignoring his injuries, Will donned the white elf suit again and glided up to the room where Jessica was. He first peeked in cautiously in order to make sure Jessica wasn't awake. The previous fight had left somewhat of a psychological shadow on him. In that fight had discovered the gap between normal people and superhumans. Boom. A noise suddenly sounded in his ear, causing him to jump. But, it was just Helen screaming his earbuds. Ha 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 ha. Don't worry, she's sound asleep for now. I'll wake her up when you are ready. Pissed, Will opened the door and flew in directly using his hoverboard. If I can deal with her once, I can deal with her again. Are you sure you want to do this? Asked Helen once again. It needs to be done, Will answered resolutely. He needs to subdue Jessica again in case she's still under Kilgrave's control, but mostly, he wants to take Jessica under his control now. And this was the best opportunity. From the background search, Will can tell that Jessica is the type of reclusive girl who is always on guard, very rude, doesn't like authority, and doesn't trust people easily. If they meet under normal circumstances, he would not be able to make someone like her submit to him. Now is the only chance to do it. Under Helen's command, the mechanical arms injected and extracted various things before retracting, and gradually, Jessica began to stir. Her eyelashes quivered, after which her eyes shot open. Patricia, she murmured softly before suddenly exerting force. No. Trish. No. Seeing her like this, Will had to raise his hand. The laser blaster on his hand glowed with green power, completely recharged. Calm down, or your face would have permanent tattoos. With the laser flashing dangerously close to her face, Jessica finally calmed down, pain flashing through her legs where she was hit before. Jessica tore her gaze away from the blaster and squinted her eyes at Will, recognizing him. You were carrying my sister. How is she? Is she still alive? She asked, her last words only ending whispers as she seemed to recall what she had done. Your sister has been safely rescued, Will answered, making her head snap back at him. A more important question is, are you still going to try to protect Kilgrave? He asked again, bringing the blaster closer to her face to the point she could feel the heat radiating off of it. Protect High. Not at all. No. I had no control over my actions back then. I am fine now, she explained hurriedly. Will already knew that the moment he saw her speak. Otherwise she wouldn't be able to ignore Kilgrave's order to keep her mouth shut. And are you going to continue using your powers to commit crimes like protecting a psychopathic killer and running away with him to be used as his tool and sex slave? Listening to these words, Jessica's eyes were filled with horror, realizing that this would have been exactly her fate had Will not stopped her. No. Of course not. I was really forced. Believe me, I am not like that. Okay. Last question. Have you ever used your powers to intentionally hurt innocent people? No. I live just like an ordinary girl. I really haven't used my powers for bad things. Please. Please believe me. What happened back then wasn't me. I wouldn't do anything to hurt Trish. Jessica began to cry, calling out her sister's name. She was just a teenage girl after all. Please let me see Trish, she kept saying. Will figured this much intimidation was enough. Alright, I believe you. I will be releasing your bindings now. But remember, don't make any sudden moves, he said, lowering his launcher. Yes. Jessica nodded vigorously. I will not do anything. But while freeing, Will suddenly paused, and pressed his finger on the ear of his helmet, pretending to be listening to something. Yes, I know she's dangerous, but I don't think she's a threat. She's just a kid, he said, sounding like he was trying to convince someone. Yes, but if she was still under Kilgrave's control, she wouldn't look for her sister. She would have looked for Kilgrave instead. Will glanced back at Jessica, who was listening to his imaginary conversation with all her attention. No, I don't think she'll do that. She doesn't look like a bad person. Will shook his head and looked at Jessica. You wouldn't understand, Helen. When she was fighting with me yesterday, I saw it in her eyes. She didn't want to hurt anyone. Yeah, I will bear the risk, he said before forcefully lifting his helmet. Will shook his head, his dark hair settling back to reveal his handsome face. He nodded at Jessica. Well, I hope you won't let me down, he said, approaching her as he began opening her bindings again. As Will manually entered the password, Jessica's metal lock snapped open. Jessica's eyes were still fixed on Will. You are that. Yes I am. I am William Osborn, heir to the Osborn Group. I'm sorry for what I put you through, we had to be sure you weren't a threat. In his ear, Helen's disgusted voice still sounded, having watched the whole thing. You are such a manipulator. Did you use this on me too? If you like it so far, please give Power Stones, add this FIC to your collections, and review. 100 Power Stones equals 1 chapter. 200 Power Stones equals 2 chapters. 15 comments 0 vote. Chapter 9. Mission complete. You are such a manipulator. Did you use this on me too? Will was a bit confused. If Helen was angry at his manipulations, then fine. But, why did she sound more like a jealous girlfriend? Jessica rubbed hands and feet. I understand. Can you tell me about my sister? I can. But can I trust you, Jessica? Will asked back. Yeah, I am the one who needs to trust you, not the other way around. Will knew that with Jessica's personality, this conversation would have gone completely differently if he had been gentle throughout the beginning. Jessica nodded solemnly. You can absolutely trust me, Mr. Osborn, she said, trying to sound like an adult. Will looked into her eyes for a long moment, to the point that a blush crept on Jessica's face. But she refused to break eye contact, putting on a stubborn look that he found a bit cute. Will finally nodded. All right then, let's go see your sister. So, moments later, the two of them stood in front of the room where Patricia was resting. Are you sure you're free? We really can't afford another one of your rampages in there. But at this moment, Jessica hesitated, taking a step back. I really don't know. At that time, I wanted to reject his orders but I really couldn't. So. It's okay, I'll hold you down, said Will, putting an arm around her. I managed to subdue you once while protecting her. I can do it again. Jessica seemed to feel more secure this way as she nodded resolutely. Don't hold back. You cheater. You obviously know Kilgrave's control over her is completely gone but you still do this. On mini buds in his ears, Helen's outraged voice continued blare. Will ignored her curses and unlocked the door, walking in with his arm tightly holding onto Jessica. Finally, Jessica saw her sister Patricia lying in the bed, looking like she was just sleeping peacefully. Trish, Jessica took 2 steps forward, raising her hand towards Patricia, as if reaching out to her but then lowered it. Is she really fine? You can say that. Will turned on the TV in the room and showed her footage where Kilgrave shot at them. Kilgrave fired around 14 shots at us. I took 11, 2 of them missed us completely, but one managed to hit her in the back. The bullet grazed her kidney, which required immediate treatment, said Will with a lost look on his face, like he was reliving the moment. But Kilgrave had taken control over you. Letting him run away with you would have not only ruined your life, but also many others. So, I was in a dilemma. At that time, she made the decision for me. Will looked down at Patricia. Even when shot, she kept looking in the direction you had escaped. It seems that you are very important to her. After this, Jessica's tears could no longer be stopped. She walked forward and took Patricia's hand without hesitation, holding it between her fingers. You said the bullet grazed his kidney. Is that bad? In normal hospitals, yes. But thanks to the advanced medical tech of Osiris, she has been almost completely healed. But, your problems don't end here. Jessica looked at him in puzzlement. What do you mean? We'll switch the screen to show the news channels, many of which were showing pictures of Jessica. You've kind of become famous. All the parents and students who were present in the classroom witnessed your extraordinary abilities. And, most are not staying quiet about it. The TV showed reporters interviewing a couple, Flash Thompson's parents, vividly describing the fight between Jessica and the White Knight. It was like a fight between superhumans. Every move could create holes and craters in the wall and broken furniture. And we were not even allowed to move, Mrs. Thompson was saying while crying. We have no reason to lie. This really is what happened, said Mr. Thompson, supporting his wife. White Knight was so cool. He's my hero. This was Flash Thompson himself who couldn't let his parents hog all the limelight. They all know. Jessica blankly looked at the screen, the realization dawning on her. Yes, but people aren't what you need to be afraid of right now. It's the government and secret organizations that would give anything to have the opportunity to cut you open and find out the secret to your special abilities. Fuck, Jessica cursed, falling into the seat next to Patricia. So, what are you going to do? Asked Will. I really don't know. I need to leave the walkers, or Patricia will be in danger too. I think I'll live somewhere alone. You're broke and wanted. How would you find a place to live? Suppose you rented a place, how would you find a job to pay for it? If people recognize you, those who want your body will follow soon. Jessica was at a loss for words. Will sighed. Alright, I am willing to help you out. I can get my lawyer and PR department to make it look like you are just an ordinary girl who has been well trained. I can also help you protect the safety of the walkers from those shadowy organizations who still might come for you. Why you can? No, you have already saved me and my sister. I really can't trouble you anymore. Don't worry. I won't do it for free. You can work in our company. Work for you. But, I don't even have a high school diploma. Will chuckled. You have such extraordinary powers and you still think about doing desk jobs that need a piece of paper. Do you know how much we spend to hire and train specialized units for security, protection, and high-risk escort missions? Aside from this, we also sometimes need people to do private investigations, dig out the dirt on corrupt politicians and businessmen, and so on. With your powers, you could be a great asset in any of these fields after receiving proper training. Will was paying close attention to Jessica's expressions while saying this, and he didn't fail to catch the brief flicker of interest, even excitement when he mentioned private investigation. Hook, line, and sinker. Jessica hesitated, unable to make a decision. Just, accept it. A faint voice sounded at this time, startling Jessica. Trish, how are you? Is there any discomfort? I'm fine, Patricia winked at her, smiling. She accepts your offer, Mr. Handsomborn, she said, shifting her gaze to Will. Great, Will held up Jessica's hand and shook it. Welcome to the Osiris family. I will arrange your training starting tomorrow. Your food, accommodation, and living expenses will be arranged and paid for by the company, and you'll also be getting a monthly allowance. Wait, but I really don't think I am. Shut up, Jessica. Patricia wasn't having any of it. Mr. Osborn, she'll gratefully accept your offer. It's just that she's introverted and always tries to push people away and makes bad decisions that can help her punish herself. Don't mind her. Trish. What? You always try to lower yourself despite having such great powers. Now that someone has discovered your potential, don't try to hide behind the wall anymore. Will secretly made a thumbs-up gesture behind his back to Helen, for waking up Patricia at the right time according to his instructions. Then, you guys chat, I'll handle the media situation. Also, Patricia, I need a picture show to your worried fans, he said, holding up his phone camera. Immediately, Patricia struck a pose while Jessica unconsciously made the face of a deer caught in headlights. Perfect. With that, Will left the room. You really don't feel guilty deceiving young girls like that? Helen's helpless voice sounded in his ear. Who said I was deceiving them? Aren't you living a good life now? Of course I'm living a gray. Wait. So you did use similar tricks on me. Just tell me if you regret it or not. Besides, I'm hiring her mostly to protect you. Though all previous attempts were thwarted, I don't feel comfortable leaving you with ordinary bodyguards. Helen melted with just that. It has to be said, she is really easy to deceive. With this matter settled, Will went to an area without surveillance and dialed a unique number. It was just a string of nines. Was that you? As soon as the call was answered, this question was asked. The voice was even and professional, every syllable sharp as a boardroom knife. It was none other than Norman Osborn, who had texted Will to call him when the matter was handled. Yes, father. That idiot Kilgrave actually came after me. Of course I had to show him levels. I had only heard rumors about him. Are his powers real? Norman asked, intrigued. Pretty much. We have him locked and under experimentation. Too bad I had to destroy his mouth so he can't use his powers anymore. He deserves it. Torture him well for me, Norman laughed coldly. Though you shouldn't have taken the risk yourself. You aren't usually that reckless. I know. I thought I could take him down without resistance. Who would have thought he would find that overpowered girl? Norman paused. So, the girl's powers were real too. Yeah, she's a special case. Helen said her powers cannot be replicated. I have already recruited her though. You did good. Train her to be obedient and let her protect you at all times. Norman sounded proud and satisfied. Why would he? Two supernaturals captured in one go. But be careful with both of them. Don't let your guard down. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll leave getting her name cleared from the media and police to you. Also, you can claim the suit as Oscorp Tech. We're not going to sell it anymore, but it should still a stock hike. I've already given the instructions for that. You don't need to teach me. With the success of the regeneration pod, social media companies, they had no shortage of money, so Will had convinced Norman to not commercialize their goblin suit and just leave it for Will to play around with. Besides, the goblin serum was not yet ready, so the suit could not be sold anyway since no one could bear the energy drain. Alright then, anything else? Will asked, ready to hang up. Yes, how was the suit without the serum? I wore it for around 30 minutes and just woke up. Alright then, use it in moderation. But do show it off a little more. Be bold. I'll increase the security measures of both companies and talk to a few senators. Will grinned. Of course. They talked for a while more before Will hung up. With just one phone call, the matter of Jessica and Kilgrave was handled. With Oscorp's power, it was just a small matter. Will also sent out the picture to the Oscorp PR team and gave them several instructions. With the matter settled, Will returned to Helen's lab, where she was still watching the girls' reunion with interest. They're talking about you, you know. She said as he sat down in front of other screens and began working. Will shrugged. So what? Many girls talk about me. But these two are different. One is child star and the other has superpowers. Don't you feel anything at all? Woman, can you let me work? As if he'd tell her. The Korean beauty was obviously probing him. Will still had to sustain a few more regeneration pod sessions, so wisely kept his mouth shut. Helen peek in. 10 most dangerous stunts. Is this your way of working? Yeah, it is. Will replied in all seriousness. But it was true that Will was working. He was researching on way to more ways to Aura Farm. There seems to be plenty of ways he can do that. We'll just need to make a list and start following through. Mission complete. But at this moment, another good news sounded in his ears, making him jump in surprise. I need the aura of power stones. 100 stones equals 1 chapter. 200 stones equals 2 chapters. 400 stones equals 3 chapters. 21 comments 0 vote. Problem got solved. Hi everyone, I don't know whether you saw it or not, but the book got accidentally set to completed status and couldn't be set back to serializing status. But now, the WN staff has responded and the issue has been fixed, so I can keep updating. Completed status is usually not reversible once set and you can't update anymore if that happens. If it had not been fixed, I would have had to start posting again, but no need for that now. I'm going to post another chapter now as celebration. Please vote with Power Stones to help me regain the ranking I lost in the meantime. You can do so by clicking on the vote icon below down finger. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 10. Aura Skill Tree Unlocked. Mission complete. At this moment, another good news sounded in his ears, making him jump in surprise. Yesterday, even after defeating Kilgrave, he still hadn't gotten the notification of mission completion. Unexpectedly, he got it now. Thinking about it, he could deduce the cause. The task also indirectly hinted at preventing Kilgrave from destroying others' lives. If Will hadn't interfered, Jessica might have run away on her own and Patricia's family might have been targeted. Just now, after he completely settled their matter, the mission was completed. It seems that he needs to pay attention to the wording from next time. But for now, Will was in great anticipation for the reward. An aura-powered skill. What could it be? Will excitedly checked the interface. Mission complete. The aura you gained during the mission, 2742. Total aura, 3165. Completion rating, 8/10. Do you wish to receive the reward? YN. Yes. Of course yes. Will all but shouted. He couldn't wait to get that aura-powered skill at all. Reward. Random aura-powered skill equals greater than Mind Boost Tier 1. Bonus. Depending on completion rating 8/10 equals greater than Iron Will Tier 1. The cognitive skills branch has been opened. Congratu. A bunch of notifications began sounding. And as soon as Will saw the skill, Mind Boost, he jumped and punched the wall in excitement, not even minding his injured hand. This was it. This was what he was talking about. All the risk he took was bloody well worth it. In fact, now he even somewhat regretted not collecting more aura. Like, he could have let Kilgrave create a bigger scene or something. But his joy could only last a few moments before a piercing pain shot through his mind. It felt like lines were being carved right through his brain, causing him immense pain. It was so bad that Will directly passed out. He woke up only a few minutes later, but the pain in head was almost gone except for a faint throbbing, as if that blinding agony was just his imagination. Will quickly check the new status. Name: William Osborn. Age: 22. Tier: Novice Aura Farmer. Aura: 0. Normal skills: Shooting LV2, Fighting LV2, US Special Forces LV1, Cooking LV1, Expand. Aura Skill Tree. Cognitive Branch: Mind Boost T1, Iron Will T1. Tasks: None. Tier Bonus: None. He quickly clicked on the new skill to see their description. Mind Boost active temporarily increases intelligence, analysis, and processing speed at aura cost. Iron Will passive resistance to mental control, fear, emotional manipulation. Mind Boost. It really is as he had thought. He can temporarily make himself smarter. Will can call himself smart, but compared to the geniuses of Marvel he is really embarrassed to even compete. Since he doesn't have superpowers, the scientific and tech routes were his best bet for survival. And now, with this skill, the way ahead might be much smoother. The other skill, Iron Will, is also not bad. Kilgrave is not the only being in Marvel who can influence people's minds. Both the skills are related to the mind, i.e. from the cognitive branch of the skill tree. And the mission was also related to Kilgrave, someone with powers related to the mind. Does this mean that the type rewards he gets from the task would be directly related to the contents of the task? That's something worth pondering over. For the time being, Will continued checking the new notification. Since he had gotten the rewards, he hadn't paid attention to the rest. The multiverse aura farming feature has been unlocked. You can now travel to other worlds to perform aura farming tasks. Will's eyes widened. Fuck. Other worlds. Not even other Marvel worlds, but actual other worlds. Will recalled the other books, series, and comics he had enjoyed in her previous life and wondered which world it would be. Thinking about it, he was quite excited about the upcoming multiverse task. But, at the same time, he was also a bit apprehensive. After all, here in Marvel, he was still pretty well established and had a lot of options to increase his survival chances. The same cannot be said about the other worlds. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Will first exited the lab and went to a secluded place. Then, he looked at his very first skill. Now, how do I activate this thing? Mind Boost, activate. Will tried giving a mental command, and when that didn't work, he tried using a verbal one. Mind Boost, activate. Still nothing. Will tapped his brain a few times and even tried tapping the system interface. Still, nothing worked. Then Will opened up difficult math questions in his phone and tried brainstorming them, hoping for a sudden boost. Unfortunately, this didn't seem to work either. His intelligence didn't increase at all. Will closed his eyes and concentrated his attention, inside his brain, trying to regain the feeling he had when those burning lines were being etched in his brain. He concentrated on that slight difference he could actually feel inside his brain. And then, he felt something connect. Suddenly, he could vaguely sense some type of layer surrounding him in a thin layer. Feeling the connection tugging at his mind, Will also pulled. And then, he felt something rushing through his brain. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. His eyes shot open, his pupils constricting to dots. What the hell? Damn, this is Mind Boost. I really do feel smarter. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. I now understand what Einstein meant by that. Thoughts raced through his mind at an exhilarating speed. It was as if his thoughts had shifted from trudging through mud to sprinting on ground. He felt like he could finally get around to doing that serum research on his own. Though with his enhanced intelligence, he also had the self-awareness that his current intelligence still might not be enough. At least, it would take a lot of time. Will focused on the connection once again, and this time, he severed it. Immediately, he felt like he hadn't slept for a day. His body was the same but mentally, he felt exhausted and sluggish. He had basically figured out the ins and outs of how the aura-powered skills work. The pain he felt in his mind was more like the system making aura pathways in his brain, or making his brain adaptable to aura enhancement. The intangible film he had felt around himself must be what the system calls aura. When the connection was established, Will could use that energy to activate the skill. Will check the aura expenditure of the skill and cursed. 50. In just a few seconds, he had lost 50 aura points. Now, Will felt the ever-growing need to farm aura. After arranging for Jessica's accommodations, Will left the company on his glider, one hand carrying the white elf exoskeleton briefcase. Crossing through the security parameter, he reached home. Brock stood in the door, having gotten the heads up through the security system. His face looked grim, like he was angry. Beside him stood Ethan with his head down, like he had made a mistake. John and Rocky stood behind them, looking relatively relaxed. Boss, we're sorry for yesterday's blunder. Both Brock and Ethan bowed their heads as he stepped on the glider. It turns out they were apologizing for yesterday's mishap. Will nodded. Well, it's good enough that you managed to inform me. But, do you now get the meaning of the anti-soup tactics I taught you? Loud and clear. Boss. Good. Remember. The first rule is prevention, the second, running away. Yes, boss. Boss. The suit and the fight were really cool. Ethan blurted out, getting a glare from Brock. Of course, the two of them were inside the class with Kilgrave, so they had witnessed the whole thing along with the other parents and students. Thanks. I'll get you guys better equipment as well after I figure out how to block all times of mind control, he said, getting a cheer. Now listen up. I have new orders. Brock, send some people to protect Patricia Walker and her family. Yes, boss. Along with being the head of the security division, Brock is also a higher executive of his security company Anubis. His wife also works there as a manager. Also, I have recruited Jessica. John and Rocky, you two will teach her everything you know. John and Rocky, these two guys are actually a couple, though it never affects work discipline. It's 2007. While others in this world might not hire them, Will doesn't care as long as they're competent. John is an expert in intelligence and reconnaissance and Rocky is good at infiltration and assassination. These two should be able to keep Jessica busy until he finds better alternatives. Boss, what about me? Asked Ethan, feeling left out. You come spar with me. I need to test out some things. Ethan's face lit up. I'm always ready for sparring. Ethan was the best in hand-to-hand combat among the four. A while later, they stood in the ring of his gym with Ethan. Boss, are you sure about this? Ethan asked hesitantly. Will had taken off his shirt, revealing his bandaged torso. His hands were also wrapped up due to injuries. Will closed his eyes. Don't worry, and don't hold back. I'll be fine. When he opened his eyes, his pupils had constricted and his thoughts had accelerated. Mind boost. Activated. 15. Alright then. Ethan is a straightforward guy. Will asked him to fight seriously, then that's what he did. He took a step forward and Will just studied him. Ethan's stance, the shift in his shoulders, the twitch in his calf, Will saw it all coming a split second before it happened. Left feint, real attack from the right. Spin elbow. Will calmly took a step back. Ethan quickly followed with a joint kick. Usually, this kind of kick is very difficult to defend against since you can't dodge. The best way to counter is to raise the knee to the landing point. Will did exactly that and the knee blocked the leg, causing Ethan to grit his teeth in pain. But, he felt it. He was a bit slow to defend, which caused him to lose balance. His mind might have become faster and smarter, allowing him to predict the moves. But sometimes, the fight just comes down to who is physically stronger and faster. And right now, with his body aching badly, Will cannot exert his strength, no matter how much stronger he is in full health. Ethan moved again, throwing a volley of jabs with quick footwork. He's baiting me into the corner. Redirect him. Shift weight, then feint low. Will moved again, foot snapping out at Ethan's shin, then ducked under a hook. This time, he did predict right. His knee caught Ethan's ribs with satisfying force, drawing a grunt. The combat sequence just continued in his head, focusing on Ethan's weak points and Will just followed. As Ethan instinctively lowered his hand to receive the blow, Will's right hand snuck up to his jaw in an uppercut. His other hand targeted the solar plexus. Now, with Ethan completely stunned, Will did a 360 hand spin, his reverse fist stopping right before it hit Ethan's jaw. The momentum was so strong that it managed to move the bodyguard's hair through the wind force. Ethan collapsed on one knee, gasping in pain. Boss, was that a new combo? The other bodyguards were also amazed. Will even got some aura points out of it. Combo is a sequence of moves designed in a way that, when performed in rapid succession, can catch an enemy off guard. You can think of it like that. What Will did was indeed a combo, but one that was designed and performed on the spot. Will didn't explain much, just continued his experiment, calling in the rest of the bodyguards as well. Then, Will was beaten up. Will can think fast, but these guys are not vegetarian. They can see that Will is predicting their moves, so they just attacked randomly. Plus, due to his injuries, his superior physique cannot be used. What can one guy do against 4 when there's not much difference in physique? It was only 2 minutes, but when Will turned off the skill, his head started to ache. Iron Will. At this moment, another stream of energy seemed to flow through his mind, soothing his aching mind somewhat. Will was pleasantly surprised. So, this is Iron Will passive. Lying on the bed, Will looked at the huge aura consumption of the skill and shook his head. Looks like there's no choice. Iris, activate the celebrity route plan. Are you sure, Master William? Yep, just do it. Activating planned celebrity route. There's another chapter. Hope you enjoyed. Please vote with Aura of Power Stones. As for the multiverse travel, don't worry, the FIC is mostly focused on Marvel. The missions to other worlds would be short and scarce and only to the popular worlds like Harry Potter, DC, or Naruto. For now, I only plan to add 1 world. And we'll see how it goes after that. I'll only focus on Marvel if it doesn't go well. And I'll write it in a way that anyone can read it without needing to see or remember the source material. I'm sure plenty of you haven't seen Jessica Jones series or read Jessica Jones comics either, but did you feel the need to when reading the previous chapters? No, because I provided all the details. Lastly, please giving POWERSTONES. 8 comments 0 vote.